Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Society of the Eternal Mile podcast. I'm your host, Noah Sias. On today's episode, we're joined by vocalist Stevie James. You may know of his work from the band Fallen Captive from Cleveland, Ohio. You may also recognize him from his work as a correspondent for Alternative Press. Follow the show on social media at SOTEM Podcast. Subscribe on whatever platform you listen on. Ratings are always appreciated. And if you'd like to support the show, head on over to Patreon at patreon.com/SOTEM Podcast. Tour reminder, Josh Bearden will be out with Distinguisher for their headliner run with Castaway and Born Anew, February 2nd, which is this Friday, through the 12th. Check Facebook for dates. Stop on out to show your support, and be sure to tell Josh you heard him here on the podcast, episode 2. I mentioned this a couple episodes back, so I figured I'd follow up. If anyone is interested in advertising on here, drop me a line on Facebook. I have a full advertiser's guide ready to roll. You don't necessarily need to be a business either to advertise. If you're in a band, a talent buyer, venue owner, or something related to this show, there's availability. So, again, drop a line on Facebook for more information. So on to today's show. My first interaction with Stevie was on the first half of the Are You Afraid of the Gent tour with Bermuda, Awaken Providence, and Fallen Captive. We were on for 11 dates with those guys as our opener. We had a few issues on that run, so it took a few days for the package as a whole to get a good bond going, but once we did, it was a good time. I didn't have a lot of interaction with Stevie outside of the general day-to-day exchanges you have on the road. I didn't know until afterwards that he had worked for Alternative Press as a correspondent on their video coverage. As it seems to be with quite a few guests, this was my first opportunity to get the backstory for Stevie. Lots of things covered on this episode, including Ohio being the exception to the rule for what I call the Midwest curse. So here's my conversation with Stevie James. Stevie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
When did you first get involved with music?
Man, I guess when I first got involved is when I picked up the trumpet back in 5th grade. But I really got into it about a year later when I started playing drums, then started playing bass, guitar. I just kind of wanted to play everything. Really got into the whole screaming thing. Played my first show when I was like 12 years old, almost 14 years ago now. So a little over half my life, been almost always playing shows, writing music. That's been pretty much nonstop for about 14 years.
Who were some of your early influences?
Early on, like being raised by my parents, my father was super into like Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and Guns N' Roses. So I was pretty into that stuff, Pink Floyd, etc., AC/DC. Then I really kind of started to find my own way, and I got like really into Slipknot and System of a Down, Korn, Limp Bizkit, a lot of like the whole nu metal wave. I was pretty much right there for that. Like probably, I don't know, in like 99, I was like 8 years old. So it's like when I first started to hear some things, but probably not till like 2002, 2003 is when I really started to get into shit. I'd say by the time Slipknot's Volume 3 came out, it was all out. So I think that was like 2004. So about 2004 is when it was like metal and nothing but.
Sure. If you had to name one record that changed everything for you, what would it be?
If I had to name one record, I'd probably go with Iowa from Slipknot. That to me, that's just like the darkest and dirtiest record. Like Corey Taylor has said in a few interviews that you wear it like a skin, and I think that really means a lot. And that record came out in 2001, and it's still one of the heaviest records ever. And I think what makes it so heavy is a lot, like the MO nowadays is to down tune as much as possible and to play like literally like note wise the heaviest shit you can. And that's all well and good. But Iowa was in drop B, I think. And it's some of the heaviest shit ever. So it's either that or Vulgar Display of Power by Pantera for sure. Another example of just like both those records are so heavy, but it's it's like the attitude that makes them heavy more than it is like the music. Like, yeah, like they're screaming, they're angry, the lyrical content is good, but but those records in particular have just such like a swagger of rage, that's been like what I've been trying to recreate like my entire musical career, is being like as heavy as possible, but not even talking about like tunings or the riffs themselves, but just that attitude of heavy. I think those two records capture it better than any records ever have.
Like that whole MTV new metal and just general metal from the 90s still holds up so well today, and we're seeing like the whole like resurgence of new metal now.
Yep, it always comes full circle. It's funny, but a lot of the new metal out now today, I mean, it doesn't even touch that old stuff. Maybe I'm probably biased being from that era, but man,
it definitely gives a nod. But I'm totally with you. It's not new like it was back then.
No, not at all.
Now it's cool to like that. Back in the day, your parents were pissed at you for talking about Korn and Limp Bizkit and all that kind of stuff,
Everyone at school, too.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So how about some of your early bands?
The first band I ever started ended up becoming a band called Abandon All Hope. We had some different names early in the day, but when we were like really getting at it, we were called Abandon All Hope. Me and my best friend and a lot of people came and went until we like kind of solidified things with my lead guitar player. Then my best friend ended up splitting, and like the real driving force was me and my guitar player, and we did a lot of really cool shit. Finally had like a lineup that was really good. Started talking to some labels and getting some serious offers. At this time, we're probably like 18, 19 years old. And right when like things were getting serious, like on the like not getting serious, but like about to get serious, like we were talking to the labels and starting to like play some really cool out of state shows and do some shit. We just kind of fell apart. So that sucked. That sucked for sure. But at the same time, I was in Fallen Captive. I was in both bands for a while, but I quit Fallen Captive to focus on Abandon All Hope. Fallen Captive is my current band. I rejoined Fallen Captive after not being in the band for about 5 years. So speaking of things going full circle, I kind of pulled a Jesse Leach from Killswitch Engage,
Sure. So what was your reasoning for coming back this most recent time?
Well, basically I came back because, after Abandon All Hope died out, I ended up joining another band called This Is a Lifetime, and we did quite a bit of touring. We were doing pretty well too, but kind of a similar offer. Like we pretty much got the record offers and kind of just collapsed right before shit got serious again, in internal turmoil, whatever it is, drugs, alcohol, both bands. But so essentially I found myself without a band. So I hit up my dude Rob, who plays guitar in Fallen Captive, and him and I were already having dialogue as friends about starting like some kind of side project or something like that. And right as we're talking about that, and This Is Lifetime breaks up and everything, their vocalist at the time, a dude named Mitch, really awesome dude. He's a really good tattoo artist, actually. But he ended up leaving the band to move to Florida and focus on his tattooing career. So it was just kind of a no-brainer at that point. Well, it was like, well, I mean, rather than starting like a side project, like, might as well just join the band.
Sure.
So ended up joining the band. The bass player of the band ended up splitting too to focus. He got married, has a great job. You know how it is. Focused on that shit. So I actually brought the bass player from This Is a Lifetime with me. So it's kind of cool to be able to bring him, because when This Is a Lifetime broke up, I told him, I was like, dude, I will find a new band and you will be in it. And there were talks of him being in the side project and everything. So it was kind of cool when it came full circle and I was able to bring him into Fallen Captive with me.
So you're on the band's current release, 2017's Fallen Captive.
Yep.
Which is a great record, by the way.
Thanks, man.
What was the writing process like?
The writing process was a pain in the ass, and it took way longer than I wanted it to. The first song we wrote for that record was called Flooded Divide, and it was mostly already written when I kind of joined the band. Most of it was, but we ended up like rewriting a new bridge and stuff like that. But that whole song came together like really fast. And I was like, sick, dude, we'll have a record written 6 months tops, get this busted out, 10 tracks, no problem. Ended up taking about a year of just, just constantly changing things and fucking with things. I mean, you know how it is. Like, the thing that we really strived to do was we wanted to really go above and beyond and doing like a lot of weird stuff that we haven't heard before, while also keeping it in more of a traditional song format. So that was a challenge in and of itself, because the previous material didn't really follow that like intro, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus kind of formula. So challenging them to kind of follow that format was kind of difficult, and they always would kind of stray from it. And, you know, we don't follow that format like verbatim, but that was kind of the general kind of almost single like structure, keeping songs around, 3.5, no longer than 5 minutes, whatever, stuff like that, while still incorporating a lot of like progressive, quote unquote, ideas and trying like a lot of new stuff. Like we do a lot of like programming and a lot of that stuff in the music. So it's not just simple as like it used to be in bands I've been in, where it's like, guitar, bass, drums, vocals, write a riff, play drums to the riff, scream over the riff, sweet. There's a lot more involved in that, because we're doing, a lot of parts where, there's two rhythm guitars, there's a lead track, maybe there's like a dissonant guitar track in the background, then there's programming, then there's sampling, and then trying to like utilize dynamics in the right way. So there was a lot of stuff that a lot of trial and error, and it just took a lot longer and was really frustrating. But overall, I mean, I think it came out better than I thought it was gonna. So it was worth it, I'd say, for sure.
Who did you go through for production?
Well, we have a producer that works with us named Chris Parketney. He helps with a lot of the we'll basically write songs, kind of bring them to him, and he'll maybe, add his 2 cents, a little bit of reformatting, maybe change a melody here and there, maybe change a part, change a drum part, stuff like that. So he has a big role in kind of solidifying the sound, I think would be a good way to put it. But then we recorded with a dude named Andrew Bayless. Actually, Chris and Andrew are both in the same band, a really awesome rock band called Nine Shrines. I think they're a mascot group. They're like a heavy Breaking Benjamin, really good band, really good dudes too. So working with them, with Chris with the pre-pro, and then Andrew with like the actual production and recording and everything. So really good dudes, really good band, really talented musicians. I know they both work with a lot of different bands, so really cool to work with them, and they're local, so it was easy. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Didn't have to really go out of the way for any of that stuff, and they're good friends, so that's a good vibe too. Like if Chris is coming over for pre-pro, like we're, drinking beer, smoking weed, and just working on the jam. Same thing when we're recording. We're just hanging out, putting together, recording a record. So it's like a really good vibe, really comfortable. Which is important, because like a lot of the stuff we're doing, there's a lot of experimenting going on. So when you're with people that you're comfortable with, it's a lot easier to do that experimenting, because you're not really trapped in your shell. You feel comfortable in the environment to like try new things, and you're not afraid for them to be like, I don't like that, dude, because like you're friends. There's no vindication there, or like any anything like that. No doubting. Everyone believes in each other a lot, so it's really a good environment as far as that's concerned in regards to both of them.
Sure. What's your favorite track?
That's hard to say, man. A lot of people have asked me that. Probably the first track, The Last Organic Bean, the intro track, which was actually the last song we wrote for the record. I just really love the lyrical content of that song. It's got like a lot of like dubstep and programming themes, like really like infused into it, but not like in a way that I feel is forced. Like the programming really becomes like part of the riffage. Really strong chorus melody on the on the keys and on the vocals and everything. Really cool bridge. We did something really weird that turned out really cool. So that song has just like a really good flow. It's got a lot of energy. We usually play it first live. And it really kicks things off really good. So I'd have to say that's probably my favorite song for sure. Yeah, I'm going to go with that.
How's the response been?
Response has been really good, man. The record was, they did 2 records with the previous vocalist, and this record was the first kind of like reintroduction of me into the band. Most of their fans hadn't even heard the stuff that I was on, 6-7 years ago, whenever it was that I was in the band the first time. So it was really like, not only my new vocals on it, but also kind of the evolved style of music. Like some of the earlier stuff was kind of more metalcore with some like synths being held out over it kind of thing. That like 2008, 2009 sound, I'm talking about. So they started to kind of progress into more of like a gent kind of progressive style mixed in with metalcore. But I feel like this record really like created like a new sound, like the Fallen Captive sound. Like it has those rhythmic elements of gent. It has those, progressive vibes of like a progressive metal band with like, 3/4 time signatures and which I know isn't like even that crazy, but doing some 3/4, doing some stuff like that and some weird riffs and turnarounds and experimenting with like, the programming and harmonies and stuff like that. So, but I think we really like overall, like we wrote 10 songs that all sound like their own 10 songs, but at the same time, really made like a cohesive record. So, but the reception was really great. To kind of answer your question, a lot of people were kind of blown away in the sense that not the previous records didn't have the recording quality and maybe like the attention to detail in the songwriting that like this record had. So I feel like we kind of really blew a lot of socks off. How I said it was the step from going from like a local band to like a real band. You know what I mean? That's kind of like the step we took. And I feel like a lot of people kind of recognize that listening back to it and everything.
So what's on the docket for you guys for this year?
Right now, man, I'm just reaching out to a lot of people trying to, we want to do a lot of touring. We want to play a lot of shows. We're always writing. We probably have like 3 new songs right now that are all, one's mostly done. 2 others are, on their way. We're also working on a lot of remixes. Our bass player, Morgan, is actually really good at doing like programming and remixes and stuff like that. So we have a couple remixes done that we're getting ready to kind of push out into the world. Remixes of the stuff on the album. As well as writing the new stuff. But yeah, right now I'm just reaching out to a lot of people. We have some local shows going on and stuff like that. A little bit of regional stuff on the way. In talks with some people about some touring and whatnot. So just trying to, by, mid-spring, we're trying to be, hitting the road and doing a lot of that this summer is the goal. So easier said than done, but we're talking to people, we don't want to, just tour to tour. We're trying to land the right stuff and make the right moves and everything. But we're definitely trying to, just create content and rock the metal, dude. We just want to play.
Right. So people may also know of you from your time in alternative press. How did you get involved with them?
A good friend of mine was working for them. He got an internship, got hired as the social media marketer. My boy Anthony. He's currently with Town Hall. That's where he's working, Town Hall in New York. So he's overseeing like social media for like a lot of major sites and stuff. Very cool. But anyway, so he's working at AP. Good friend of mine. They needed someone to just come in and kind of build some shelves and organize like their backstocked magazines. They had like 30, 40,000, 50,000 magazines backstocked. They were a little unorganized. So at the time, I mean, I was just kind of talking to Fallen Cats about getting into there. I was, doing some landscaping, running a landscaping team or whatever. Nothing fucking that cool. It was like one of those brief lapses over the past 14 years where I'd kind of like almost kind of fallen out of music for a second. Like I still had like a toe in, but I wasn't, balls deep as I usually was. So I jumped at the opportunity. I was like, dude, I'll come in there, build those shelves, organize that shit so fast and so good, dude. They're going to have to hire me. I actually quit my day job just to go in there to just like, hey, 2 weeks of doing this. I was like, fuck that. I quit my job. I went in there. I'm going to work there. So it worked out. I did a good job. I ended up getting like a role in the merch department. And a few months into working in the merch department, basically the owner approached me and asked if I'd be interested in like interviewing bands and stuff like that. And to be honest, I wasn't. I didn't really care about doing that kind of thing. It's not really something I was interested in. But I was like, I'll take any opportunity I can get. Like whatever, I'll do it, So, first band I interviewed was New Year's Day. A little awkward, getting the feel for everything. But then started rolling with it. Fucking did a covered Rock on the Range. Did a lot of interviews when I was down there. And the ball was rolling, just started doing interviews, doing Instagram takeovers, Snapchat takeovers, doing live Facebook interviews while at shows, like all the different bullshit. And went really well, man. I mean, I parted ways with them in December. It was pretty much mutual. I mean, I've been there for like 2.5 years, and that's like a long time to be with one place, you know, in the media world. Like, it sounds weird to people like working like normal conventional jobs, but like in the, you know how it is, like in the media world, like that's a long time to be like with one place. So, you know, whatever, mutual splitting and everything. Like there's no bad blood, like, whatever. So, but yeah, man, crazy times. Did a lot of really cool shit. So it was definitely an awesome experience, and did a lot of cool stuff. Met a lot of really cool people. So it was definitely good.
This is where we'd talk about like gear and endorsements and all that kind of fun stuff. But since you're a vocalist, we'll change it up a little bit.
Sure.
Where do you pull influences from for writing lyrics?
That's a good question. Could be a lot of different places, like, I mean, my main MO is I never write lyrics before there's music to put them over. I'm not one who like writes, like a song that I'm hearing in my head, or write like poems or anything like that. Like for me, like I kind of let the music speak to me. But aside from that, I do like a lot of reading, whether it's with books or articles on the internet, or pretty much anything I can get my hands on. And I definitely think about a lot of stuff and look into a lot of stuff. So that like base knowledge kind of fuels what comes to me when I hear a song, So like when we're working on a couple riffs and stuff like that, based on how that kind of makes me feel, like the immediate thing that I kind of hear in my head as it's playing, I guess like all the reading and thinking and everything I've done leading up to that moment kind of fuels the fire. And what I have found is usually when I write lyrics, it's pretty immediate, like the bass line. Like I'll basically sit down, hear something, and I'll be able to write a couple things almost immediately. And those things may change, but the stuff kind of flows to me immediately, to where I'll write an entire song in maybe like 30 minutes as soon as it like hits me. Maybe it's not the first time I listen to the riff, but at some point when I'm listening to the riff, if it's going to hit me, I'm going to write the whole song. And then that may change a few times as I kind of go through the revision process. But it really depends on what the song, almost like as cliche as it sounds, like I write what the song tells me to, you know what I mean? If that makes any sense. So I kind of let it speak to me and kind of apply, what's coming through my head at that moment. I don't like writing lyrics in advance and then applying it to music. I think that's kind of disingenuous to the music that's been written. So I really rely on the music kind of telling me what to write over it, if that makes sense.
Sure. Opinion question. What's something that you see young or inexperienced vocalists doing that drives you nuts?
Oh man, a million things, dude. I bartended at a concert club here in Cleveland, the Foundry Concert Club. So I see it all, man. We're a small cap room. I think our cap's like 300 or something like that. I'm not sure exactly what it is. So we have a lot of local shows, a lot of smaller shows. You have the smaller openers. I mean, I see it all, dude. So with metal vocalists in particular, like I feel like with vocalists, and not even just metal, a lot of genres, no one knows how to hold a damn mic. And I was guilty of this when I was younger. I mean, for sure. But I wish someone told me instead of me having to figure out on my own, because a lot of professional, metal vocalists do this too. But you're not really supposed to touch the head of the mic, like the silver part. You don't want to like cover that up in any way. Like the reason it's shaped like a circle and it has all those like it's got holes in it, whatever, is so the air can travel through it. That's very important. That's a huge part of it. You don't see any professional, like not metal performers per se, but like professional like singers. You don't see them touching the head of the mic. Like they're not cupping the mic. They're not even touching it. Like they're holding the shaft, man. Like because you want to let the air travel through that. But I understand for a lot of metal vocalists, screamers in particular, starting out, is screaming kind of sounds bad by default. So they cup the mic to make the screaming sound better. That's because you're masking a lot of the sound. But as you get better at screaming, like you don't want to mask any of that sound. You want the true vocal performance to come through. So what I always tell like people who are learning how to scream, I'm like, dude, scream a cappella, no music. I mean, yeah, scream to music to learn, definitely learn some shit and try to match tones and develop your own tone for sure. But spend a lot of time screaming to no music, a cappella, in your car, in your house if you can, wherever it is, but no sound, and just hold out tones. Maybe scream a line from a song, stuff like that. Maybe slow it down and really perfect your tone. Because if you can sound good in a dead room, you're going to sound great through a mic, and you won't need to cup it. You won't need to fuck with any of that shit, because that shit distorts your sound like crazy. So there's that. That's probably my biggest pet peeve. But furthermore, another peeve of mine is just communicating with the crowd between songs. You know what I mean? I mean, that's always, and that's hard because that's public speaking. I mean, it's hard for a lot of people. But when I was younger, I would write out like a basic thing of what I would say between the songs, because I knew I was young, wasn't confident, wasn't really a public speaker. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to say. And I would run into situations where a song would end and it'd be kind of awkward, and I would just kind of awkwardly introduce the next song. And that's no good. So, now at this point in my career, I don't have to write out what I'm going to say between songs. I barely even think about it. It just, happens on its own. But for like younger people starting out, like, you should definitely kind of have a plan of how you're going to transition from one song to the next. Like, that's your fucking job. Like, don't make it awkward, and don't say anything weird. And I mean, say something weird, but like tastefully weird, you know what I mean? Like, have some, no one wants to feel awkward. As an entertainer, the last thing you want to do, literally the last thing you want to do, is make people feel awkward. That's the worst thing you can fucking do. And if you're feeling awkward, they're going to feel awkward. It's awkward. It's a fail. Like that, I would say my number one advice is don't be awkward. Like, because that's going to ruin the whole damn thing. Just be confident. Even if it sucks, even if you say something stupid, if you're confident and you say it with conviction and you roll right into the next song, most people won't even notice you said something stupid. You know what I mean? No one's paying that close of attention. It's all good, So
Right.
those are my two peeves, man. Don't cup the mic. Hold it by the shaft like a gentleman. And, just be confident. You got nothing to fucking lose.
I think something to add to that just quickly. Yes, absolutely have confidence in what you're saying on stage, even if you think it's going to be dumb. But don't try out your stand-up material. I really hate it when bands do that.
Awkward jokes.
Yeah. It's
yeah,
one
exactly.
It's one thing if like, okay, hey, so like guitarist broke a string or some shit like that, but when it's
sure.
Cool, here's our tuning opportunity. Instead of talking about how you got merch in the back or you got a show coming up or whatever, don't tell us why the chicken crossed the road.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'll tell you what, though, a lot of death metal bands have hysterical commentary between songs. Most of the really good brutal death metal bands, like I'm talking like speed metal and stuff like that, especially, these guys are fucking hilarious between songs, dude. I see it all the time at the Foundry Concert Club where I bartend, dude. The death metal bands, they pretty much do stand up between songs, and it's hilarious most of the time, for sure. But any other genre, I haven't seen anyone else get away with it. You're totally right.
All right, so let's have a discussion about the Eternal Mile. When was your first tour, and what was the lineup?
Man, my very first tour was with my band, Abandon All Hope, and there was no lineup. I mean, we just went out solo basically, and like hopped on a whole bunch of different shit. It was like a 7, 8, 9 day tour, whatever it was. I can't remember. And it was a complete disaster. We did East Coast, went into like New York City, New Jersey. I can't remember. It was a complete disaster, but it was also probably the best time of my entire life. We had a ridiculously great time. We definitely drank too much and smoked too much and, did whatever too much for sure. But fantastic learning experience and just an insane amount of fun. Like, we had just a blast for sure. Like, really great time. I was probably like 18 maybe, 19 at the time. So, no, it was phenomenal. Eye-opening for sure.
To date, if you had to guess, how many shows have you played?
Probably less than 1,000. I would say definitely less than 1,000, but many hundred.
Sure. How about favorite venues?
Really, any venue with cheap beer is good by me. I mean, I'll tell you the style of venue that's my favorite. To be totally honest, is I love shitty venues. like, I love them. Those are my favorite shows to play. Like, we show up and there's like, there's no PA, or there's like a PA, but like they're not micing up anything. They're not micing up drums or guitars. And there's no stage. It's just like, you're going to play over here in the corner. And there's some dude selling like $1 PBRs out of this fucking, on a bucket full of ice and PBRs, like no liquor license shit. My favorite shows are those shows, man, where it sucks, because that's like, to me, that's like true fucking metal. That's like true like music. Like when you get in a room with maybe like 30, 40 kids that just love this shit, and you love this shit, and it sounds like shit, and it's hot as fuck, or it's cold as fuck because there's no heat or AC or anything, and you don't even know if like anyone owns this building, or if like this is just being squatted or something, or who knows what's going on. A little bit of danger, a little bit of fear. Those are by far my favorite venues. I mean, I've played in some really good venues and stuff like that, but man, I like the shitty ones. If in bumfuck nowhere, those are my favorite. But by far my favorite. Like, there's nothing like it. Those are the best times for sure.
How about favorite markets?
Well, obviously I'm biased to Cleveland because I love Cleveland, and I think Cleveland has a really, really, really strong scene. Not as strong as it's been in the past, to be honest. But I think that's what all scenes are dealing with right now. I don't think any scene is as strong as it was in the past, to be honest. Love Cleveland. Really love there's a lot, really. It's hard to say. I really like Pittsburgh scene. They have some diehards. Even in I hate going to New York City, but New York City has a solid scene on the right night. I'll tell you what, I'm not a big fan of like West Coast. It's not the same to me. I mean, no disrespect to the West Coast people, but I'm a Midwest, East Coast kind of guy, and I feel like there's less fear on the East Coast, to be totally honest. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's exceptions to all this. I haven't done a lot on the West Coast. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I could be totally wrong on this, but in my experience, the rowdiest shows and like the most like diehard and genuine people I've ever met are mostly in the Midwest and even on the East Coast as well. We used to play, my former band used to play at this joint. I think it's called Swayze's in Marietta, Georgia. We played there like 3 or 4 times. And that had like one of the best communities of like younger kids that threw down, We played we played this place in Delaware. I can't remember where. We played there a few times, like Wilmington, I think it was, Delaware. And these kids were like probably 18, 19, 20-year-old kids that threw down like hard as shit, like fucking each other up, man. But like being so genuine about it, like no fights, truly meaning it, like really good people, super appreciative, not just to our band, but like any of the bands that were playing, whether they were local or also on tour or whatever. Like, it kind of goes back to what I was saying about venues, man. I just love those like kind of middle of nowhere places where you're in a shitty venue and you're playing in a city you've never heard of. Like, man, those are the markets. Those are the places. That's where it's fucking real. And those are the shows I leave feeling the best, where I feel the most real and the most connected to my art,
For sure. I know for me, and I've mentioned this on the show before, it's those non-venues where you get some of the best shows.
Yeah, dude. Exactly.
We played in Syracuse, New York, and it was at this venue, I think, called The Warehouse. And
I think I've played like 10 places called The Warehouse.
Yeah. So this place was literally like in the weirdest alley of all time.
Mm-hmm.
There's like 3 broken down cars on the inside of it.
Hell yeah.
There's kind of a stage, but it's almost like where a loading dock was. And there's like 2 half pipes on it.
Love it.
And then the band's kind of set up inside of the half pipe. And for us, that was our first tour after our record Use Your Burdens came out, and we had a terrible release with that. And we didn't know how it was hitting with the audience. That was the first show that we played on that run where kids were screaming the words back at us. And it's just like, hell yeah. Like, again, non-venues are where the real fans are. And
yeah, dude.
And the PA was seriously like this big.
Yep.
And they weren't micing nothing, all that kind of stuff. And literally there was so much like dust and probably like asbestos up in like the rafters. We're playing and we're so loud and it's like shaking the building and it looks like it's snowing on the inside of the place. So
yes,
but
love that shit.
Definitely one of the great highlights from the road for me.
Hell yeah, man. Those are the best shows, dude. Every time, dude. Like, give me 50 people in the corner of a building that you're not even sure is like going to stand for another year. Give me 50 kids in there over 500 people in a legit theater, dude. Any day, any fucking day.
So the staple question for this year has been Warped Tour.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Lyman announced that 2018 is the last year for Warped, citing an aging demographic and drops in attendance. What are your thoughts on Warped coming to an end? And do you think aging demographics are coming for bands in the lower and middle class markets?
Well, I've never been a big Warped Tour kind of dude. I was sad when Ozfest stopped happening forever ago. I feel old saying that.
Yeah.
Weird. So to be totally honest, I don't give a fuck about Warped Tour, like at all. Good riddance and goodbye. A lot of people are like, well, how are young bands going to get exposure? I don't know, dude. Maybe fucking put out some music and fucking do some touring and earn it like the good old days, dude. I hate this fucking mindset of like, oh, if we can just get on Warped Tour, dude, we can blow up. Fuck you, man. Put some work in, And honestly, Warped Tour dying helps like the venues I work for like crazy, man. All the 200, 300 cap venues, we'd be screwed in the summer half the time because bands that would play at our venue are busy playing on stupid fucking Warped Tour. So Warped Tour just kills small venues and small, I was saying how I love like illegitimate venue shows and stuff like that. But I mean, second place is small venue shows. And when you get to see a band, like I remember back in the day, I saw a tour that was something like fucking All Shall Perish, Job for a Cowboy, Suicide Silence, and Misery Index, something like that, some kind of mix like that. And I watched that whole package with 60 other kids. And it was fucking awesome. You know what I mean? But that kind of shit, I guess it's less impactful on metal, but as far as like the pop punk and the punk scene and everything, like Warped Tour just bleeds that shit dry. And it gives people this impression that like the younger demo, they think that the bands they need to like are on Warped Tour, and they end up missing out on so many other bands that they would probably like even more that aren't on Warped Tour. And Warped Tour is a whole fucking dick showing contest. Like, very few bands are on Warped Tour because they really put the work in and really earned it. I mean, a lot of bands put the work in and have really earned it. I mean, most of Warped Tour is just you knew who to talk to get you on the bill, or your management knows who to talk to get you on the bill and everything like that. So it's not really like a genuine showing of like of music. I mean, there's exceptions, don't get me wrong. I'm friends with a lot of people that have done the Warped Tour who have definitely fucking earned it. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of people haven't fucking earned it. And good, I don't hate the player, hate the game. I'm not mad at them. They got on the bill. Like, shit, if someone asked me to go on Warped Tour this year, I'd fucking go for sure, dude. The Warped Tour is the best, dude. Let's go. But I mean, at the end of the day, man, and I'm even scared, like with these Danny Wimmer festivals and everything. Like, these festivals are cool, man, but it hurts like the smaller touring market. I guess that's what happens when it's everyone's trying to make money and everything. I totally get that 1,000%. Me too. But man, it kind of comes full circle, like what we keep saying, like those like intimate connections at those like smaller venues. Like, that's fucking music, dude. That's music, dude. Not Warped Tour. Not the House of Blues, not Danny Wimmer festivals, not MTV, none of that shit. I mean, that all has its place, but I mean, real fucking music, dude. Like real intimate artistic connections with artists and fans. That's in those small venues. That's in those venues you aren't sure are even venues. Like that's in some dude's basement at a house show. Like house shows are another great example of like shit I fucking love, dude. Playing in someone's basement, everyone's rowdy and wasted and shit. That's awesome. That's the real shit. So I hope people realize that that's the best way to consume live music again. I hope that comes back, because standing there looking at someone on a stage at Warped Tour and it's 110 degrees outside and it's outdoors and kind of, doesn't sound right. And there's a million fucking people everywhere and everything's wicked expensive, dude. Like that sucks. You go to Warped Tour, you got to buy a $10 beer. It's ridiculous. You know what I mean? Or you could see a band in your buddy's basement and it's a kegger and you pay $5 to drink on the keg and you buy a t-shirt from the band and you fucking have the best night of your life. Like that's the shit that needs to, the younger generation. I don't know if they know that that's the shit, man. So I'm hoping that like Warped Tour Dying forces these bands to like do it that way again. And the fans like start to digest it that way again. You know what I mean? So I'm cool with Warped Tour Dying. It had a great run. It's a legendary tour. Kevin Lyman is, he's made his money. He's made his mark. Props to him for sure. But it's time.
That's probably one of the more like in-depth answers I've gotten so far. And that rules because everybody's been like, oh man, it's such a bummer and this and that. And I'm kind of in the same boat as you. It's like, yeah, I mean, you and I are not going to bullshit here. Of course, both of our bands have been trying to get on Warped Tour.
Fuck yeah. I'd play Warped Tour right now.
But it really doesn't matter at the end of the day.
No.
So.
No, it doesn't. It's had its run. It's made its impact. And, that's what's up.
So speaking of knowing when to wrap it up, now time for some of the less glamorous moments in your career. Any horror stories from the stage?
Fucking a million, bro. I remember the first time we played the Agora Theater, which the Agora in Cleveland is a legendary concert venue. It's the world famous Cleveland Agora. And it's got two stages, the ballroom and the theater. The ballroom's like a 6 or 7 cap, and the theater's like a 2,000 plus cap. We got to play the theater once for part of a bigger show. My first band. And my guitar player's amp totally takes a fucking shit. And this is an earlier band, so we're all wasted. We're all stoned. We're all on drugs, whatever. So we're not handling the situation properly. We end up delaying our set like 15 minutes. His shit's just broken, so we end up playing like 3 songs with like our rhythm guitar player who wasn't nearly as good as the lead guitar player, the lead guitar player's amp was fucking up. So basically a band played 15-minute set changeover, 15 minutes of us fucking up, and then like 12 minutes of not the full band playing the songs not very well. It was an absolute disaster in every way. And I could probably list 100,000 other horror stories because like everything that could possibly go wrong has gone wrong for me, for sure. I've eaten all that shit up. But that'd probably be one of the worst just because of like the opportunity of playing in front of a lot of people and the preparation that we put into that show, and then just getting way too drunk and having a malfunction happen and just not handling it well and recovering very poorly and making our band look like shit. That's probably the worst. I'm glad we were like 19. So like no one remembers, no one knows, but man, it was fucking terrible.
How about worst promoter?
I mean, most promoters are the worst promoter, but I've learned to not really put any faith in the promoter whatsoever. I just pretty much anticipate. My contingency plan is, if I haven't signed anything, I don't plan on getting paid. And if I didn't promote, I don't plan on anyone coming. So at the end of the day, it's all about, controlling what you can control. And, in a perfect world, the promoter does what he says he's going to do, and he does his job, and a bunch of people come to the show, and you get paid, and everything's fucking sick. But I used to get really mad at promoters dropping the ball, but at some point I just kind of came to peace, and I was like, you know what? I'm only going to rely on me and my band. If we draw 100 people, if we create revenue, then great, we've earned that. But like, if 10 people come to the show and the promoter promised 50, well, why didn't I get 50 people to come on my own? So at the end of the day, I think most promoters suck, and that's okay. I'm not gonna put my product and my faith in a stranger's hands ever. So I just assume the promoter I'm dealing with is terrible, and I try to make the best of each show.
Lastly, what's one of the most random things to happen on tour or at a show?
One of the most random. I mean, dude, tours every day. Random shit happens. I mean, Jesus. I've had people tell me that, speeding's not illegal because it's not in the Constitution, which is a hilarious conversation, especially as someone who loves the Constitution. That's still a ridiculous claim. I don't know why it's one of the first things that came to mind. One time I was on tour, and it was one of those it was really good shows where it's in this bullshit venue and everything was really good. We were talking with people and hanging out afterwards. We're getting wasted and we're smoking and we're hanging out with this lesbian couple, these two chicks who I thought were really cool. And we were having a good time and everything. And we were drinking and smoking like by the van and everything. And the one chick gets too wasted and she's like throwing up and not feeling good and everything. So we could put her in our passenger seat and we let it, we throw a blanket on her and, kind of have her positioned to where she can kind of yak out the door and everything. And everything's cool. We're hanging out with her girlfriend and everything's chill. And then like her girlfriend like goes over and talks to the girl who's like half wasted. And then she like comes back over in like a hurry and she's like, we gotta leave right now. I'm like, what's going on? Is she okay? Like, everything's fine. And they bolt out. And we're like, man, that was weird. Like that chick, the wasted chick didn't even seem that drunk anymore. Like she literally just like scurried off with the other one. So we're like, whatever. We get back in the van, and they like stole our weed, stole our bowl, stole like a bunch of crap that wasn't worth anything. Like they were just literally like the chick was just like scurrying up anything she can. So I don't know if this chick was actually like drunk enough, but this chick threw up a bunch. So I don't know if she like self-induced vomiting to get herself into a position for her and her girlfriend to like steal all of our shit. I don't know what it was, but it was the most random shit ever because the whole night was random, but like that was like the perfect way to top it off. And it was devastating because we had just bought blood off someone there and everything, and man, that was pretty random. Didn't see that coming. But I mean, there's probably like a million other things I could go through. But
what a mess though, dude. Like that sucks. That literally sucks.
We were having a good time, dude. We were having a good time. We even took care of her, thinking she's wasted the whole time she was scheming us to steal our weed. Like, here's what I never understand how people steal from a touring band. Like that's like kicking a baby. You know what I mean? We're already barely making it. We're already making bad decisions out here. Like, don't steal from us, man. Like, come on.
So we've discussed the Midwest on the show a couple times now, and my episode with Brian Moore of the Browning opened my eyes to something. The Midwest is notorious for having more shot shows than awesome ones.
Mm-hmm.
But Ohio appears to be the exception to the rule.
That's right, baby.
I've played Ohio 5 times in my career, and every single one of them have been memorable. Mm-hmm. So that all said, what are your thoughts on the Ohio music scenes?
Ohio, I think, is just like a unique state in general. I mean, I was kind of saying earlier how we still do have a really strong scene. It was stronger, dude. When I was like probably a decade ago, dude. I mean, it was insane. There wasn't a show that I went to that wasn't just packed. Like me and other people I knew, we would just go to a show. Like, it didn't matter who was playing. We would just be like, oh, is there a show at that venue tonight? Well, let's go to it then. You know what I mean? Like, that wasn't just me and my group of friends. That was just kind of the attitude of everybody. And I think, with technology and the new generation, like, we've lost a lot of that, but we've retained a lot of it as well. I mean, I guess the easy joke that a lot of people make is, well, there's nothing to do in Ohio, so of course they go to shows. But like, That's such like a lazy like reason to me. You know what I mean? Like there's plenty to do in Ohio, especially like Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, even Toledo, Akron, Dayton, Youngstown. All these places have things to do. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know, man. I love Ohio especially because I feel like we're always like it's always the underdog state, man. Like everyone's always doubting Ohio and kind of shitting on Ohio, but Ohio's like got like the most genuine people who like really give a fuck about shit. And I think a lot of people in Ohio like genuinely give a fuck about music. And in Ohio, when you give a fuck about something, like it's from what I've learned, it's different than when you give a fuck about something on the West Coast or East Coast or Midwest. I think is similar. Like Ohio kind of has similar connections as the Midwest, but like I think a little stronger even. Like when you give a fuck about something in Ohio, like you really give a fuck about it. And when you really give a fuck about something in Ohio, you like really do something about it. Like, I mean, one of my favorite quotes is from LeBron James, dude. Nothing in Northeast Ohio in particular, but in Northeast Ohio, nothing is given, everything is earned. And I think that applies to the whole state, man. Like, we're always getting shit on, everyone thinks like, oh, Ohio, it's just like, it's always like the butt of a joke. When I meet people on tour and I'm like, yeah, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, they're like, oh, sorry. I'm like, what are you sorry for, dude? I fucking love my city. Like, I love Ohio. I love Cleveland. Like, everything's fucking cool. So I think Ohio is just passionate. Like Cleveland's got like some of the most like city pride you'll see anywhere. Like there's like multiple businesses that literally just sell like Cleveland pride, like on T-shirts and memorabilia and stuff like that. Like fucking people from Ohio just love being from Ohio, and they take a lot of pride in Ohio. So like when you talk about like the Ohio scene, like people take pride in being in the Ohio scene, and they want people coming to Ohio to have a memorable experience in Ohio for Ohio. So like when that person leaves Ohio, they're like, you know what, dude, Ohio's all right. And the next time someone talks bad in Ohio, you got an ally out there saying, hold up, I went to Ohio and it was fucking awesome. So I think it's just a combination of just passion and pride and humility. I mean, it's real, it's real out here. Everyone, I mean, there's always exceptions and everything, but generally, I mean, people are real in Ohio, and that's tight. That's another reason why I love being here, and that's why I'm still here.
I'm curious to hear what advice you'd have to a few different groups of people. And for starters, how about local bands?
Don't do it. Just quit now, get a real job, go to college, do something better with your life. No, I'm kidding. I'm mostly serious, but I'm kind of kidding. I mean, only really do it if you love it, but have realistic expectations. And if you really want to do something with it, expect a really long grind. Most people I know, like lifers in the music industry, if you will, have been doing it for a really long time and have dealt with a lot of bullshit along the way. Like, I think I'm a great example of that. I mean, I played my first show 14 years ago, and I'm still playing in bands, still working jobs in the music industry. I mean, either you love it or you don't. But that's basically what it comes down to. If you want to make a career out of music, I mean, expect that to take a really long time to build up and put together. And expect it to be really, really hard, really difficult. If you're just playing music because you love music and you don't have any expectations, then fuck yeah, dude. Have a blast. You know what I mean? Go crazy. Enjoy yourself. Especially being like a teenager in a band, playing shows and hanging out with friends. Like those will be some of the best times you have in your entire life. But for those people trying to seriously make a career out of it, I mean, there's a lot of sacrifice, a lot of bullshit, and a lot of failure you got to eat before you even, have a nibble of success. And you just got to be ready for that and be willing to do it because you love it and you'll do it, So that's would be my advice.
You already kind of touched on this earlier, but I suppose we'll bring it up again. How about promoters?
I dream of a day where there's no promoters anymore. I mean, they're already a lot less important than they used to be. I mean, promoters back in the day before the internet were like a really important part of booking a show. They had to like secure the show, print the flyers, walk around, promote the show. I mean, there's no internet. So even if a band is coming, there's no way for that band to tell anyone they're coming because there's no internet. So they can't post on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and make Facebook events and run sponsored ads and tell people on their Snapchat that they're coming to their city. Like there was none of that. So promoters literally had to promote. With the internet, they don't need to do that anymore. And I find, when we book shows locally, I almost never go through a promoter. I pretty much just always book it myself. There's nothing a promoter can do that I can't do. So a lot of bands have picked that up as well. So I think in general, promoters are kind of kind of phasing out. I mean, I guess they're semi-important for like bringing in like touring packages and stuff like that. But that's like a different level. That's not really a promoter anymore. It's just like a talent buyer at that point. So I think like the role of like straight up promoter, I think is pretty much dead. I mean, there's exceptions, but I'd say, you know, for the most part, it's not what it was, and it's never going to be, and it's pretty much done. So I have no advice for promoters. It's finally, I guess, the short answer to that.
Lastly, how about bands hitting the road for the first time?
I mean, the best advice ever is, which is almost impossible sometimes, but don't hit the road broke. Um, if you're hitting the road and you guys already don't have any money, like you're screwed. You know what I mean? Like the slightest thing goes wrong and you're totally screwed. Like, you know, like this is kind of a controversial opinion, but whenever I see a band post like our van broke down, please, you know, support our GoFundMe and help us get us back on the road, or we're running sales, please help us get it back. And I have friends that have done this and everything. So like, I'm not hating, but at the same time, I feel like, man, like I've been in bands and we've broken down on the road and we either fixed it or paid to fix it. Like, because that's our problem. You know what I mean? Like we have no business going on the road when we can't, you know, fix a broken down engine. Like for example, I think it was the tour we did with you guys with Bermuda. Our van, our transmission broke. First day of tour, our transmission blew straight up, and we were able to and we were only in Pittsburgh, which is only like a 2.5 hours, not even like about 2 hours from Cleveland. So we were able to drive our van back to Cleveland at like 30 miles an hour. It took like fucking almost 4 hours to get back. And we have a second van, you know, because the convenient thing is, you know, I had a van and I joined the band and they already had a van and stuff like that. But we drove back, got my van and kept going on tour and got the transmission fixed while we were on tour. So we got back and the van transmission was good, stuff like that, like having those contingency plans. To me, like I couldn't imagine like if you look at your band as like a business, I couldn't imagine like a business having a problem and then reaching out to its customers like, hey, we can't produce our product anymore because like our machine broke, please help us. Like it seems kind of counterintuitive to me. So I think a lot of people kind of just really want to tour and they jump the gun, but I think touring is like it's an adult endeavor, and I think you need to make sure either you have like money backed up or a lot of credit or some kind of contingency plan to where if your van breaks, or the other thing too is like your gear getting stolen, like people's gear gets stolen out of their trailer at a venue and then they're screwed and they have to run like some kind of, you know, again, like a GoFundMe campaign or some kind of bullshit because their gear got stolen. It's like, why aren't you insuring your gear? You can insure your gear. Like you can take a basic insurance policy out on anything. So insure your fucking gear, and you know, when that shit gets stolen, if you're on tour with bands, I mean, when you have to file the insurance claim and it takes time and stuff like that, obviously. So you should still have backup money or a line of credit to buy new gear, regardless. That shit should be insured. So where if you have $20,000 rolling around in a box on wheels going from state to state, like insure that shit. Because that shit can get stolen or get crashed into. Like, for example, if someone rear ends you and takes out your 5x8, like, none of the gear in there is covered by your auto insurance or their auto insurance. That shit's just gone now. They'll replace the trailer, but all your gear is gone. Insure your fucking gear, you know, like simple shit like that. Like there's so much stuff like people don't think about because they get so wrapped up in like, let's tour, let's party, let's have a great time. Like if the van breaks down, fuck it, you know. It's like, yeah, you say that until you're in bumfuck Idaho and your van breaks down and you have no money. Like get AAA, fucking save up money, make sure like someone has good credit, or maybe a few of you have good credit and you've established like large lines of credits to where if something serious goes on, you can throw $3,000 on a credit card in the bank and pay it off, you know, like whatever you got to do, but like have those contingency plans. Even, I mean, in best case scenario, you got mommy or daddy who's got money. I mean, that's the best thing. If you have someone in your band like that, then fuck yeah, dude, like go for it and call mom if your van breaks down and she'll fix it. That's beautiful, but have some kind of fucking plan. Like protect your business. I mean, like no one cares about your band as much as you care about your band. So like protect it, you know, put yourself in a position to succeed anything that can go wrong can go wrong. So like, plan as if it's all going to go wrong, you know, especially on tour, dude. Shit, like everything's going to go wrong. Know that and plan on it. Like, dude, when I'm on tour and like shit's fucked, I'm like, okay, like I'm not mad. I'm not surprised. Like I planned on this and anticipated it. So like, cool, it's fucked. Let's fix it. Let's carry on. You know, like that's the mentality you have to have and anticipate everything going wrong so that when it does, you know what to do and you're not even mad. You can keep enjoying yourself.
All right, let's do a plug for Fallen Captive. Where can people find you guys?
You know, everywhere you find anything. You know what I mean? Like, we had a website, but it's down right now. I don't even know if I care about websites for a band right now, to be totally honest. But we're on everything, you know, all the socials and YouTube and Spotify and iTunes and Amazon. And wherever you get your music, man, you'll find us there. And you can get our music. Enjoy it.
Stevie, thank you so much for coming on the show. Send my regards to the rest of the Fallen Captive camp, and best of luck moving forward this year.
Thanks so much for having me, man. Really appreciate it. I like what you're doing here with your podcast, dude. Very cool, and I wish you the best of luck moving forward in all of your musical endeavors as well.
That concludes this episode. Thank you to Stevie for being on the show. Check out Fallen Captive and Stevie's work with Alternative Press TV. Extinguisher Tour starts Friday. Check Facebook for details. And for anyone interested in advertising, drop me a line on the show's Facebook page. I've been your host, Noah Sias, and as always, thank you for listening.